I'm David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and funny one. Today's post, Project 2025, almost makes sense. Almost. They had some ideas, but they died of loneliness. Ideas are a funny thing. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm busy doing something else, working on something else, or even just thinking about something else, a random idea will pop into my head out of nowhere, having nothing to do with, well, anything really. Usually it's profound insight that makes me see the whole world in a different way. Like the time I was in an art museum and got so close to a painting that it was just a series of brush strokes. As I backed away, I could see how those random brush strokes came together to form a picture. And I decided I wanted my life to be like that, where you can't always see what it represents on the surface, but when viewed as a whole, it would be a series of strokes that came together to mean something. There was also the time a fellow student at the University of Missouri told me she was walking through the campus when she suddenly thought, capitalism is wrong. And then the idea went away as quickly as it appeared into her noggin. I imagine we all have such moments of clarity. Some of us think about it for a moment, then let the feeling pass, move on with our lives, and forget about them. Others use them as a jumping off point to change things. Sir Isaac Newton came up with the concept of gravity when an apple knocked him in the noodle. Albert Einstein originally dreamt up his theory of relativity while daydreaming at his job at a European patent office, and Paul McCartney's inspiration for a song about scrambled eggs led him to write Yesterday, one of the most covered songs in history, with more than 2,200 artists recording their own version of the classic. In a way, Project 2025 is kind of like that, but in a not-so-good way. It's almost as though a bunch of people who are having the same type of random thoughts got together and decided to act on those thoughts without stopping to ask if they were good ideas or not. Instead, they just decided to put them to paper and then act on them. And it almost works. There are moments when you read their histories and the groundwork of facts they lay to justify their proposals, and you begrudgingly say, they have a point there, only to have them come in with Jar Jar Binks from left field. The chapter on international development is a perfect example. Project 2025 makes a valid point that it might not be such a great idea to send money to countries that hate us. Yeah, I can see that. They also point out that a large percentage of the monetary assistance gets skimmed off by corrupt politicians or sketchy non-governmental organizations. Okay, I'm still with you. And then they say the only way to fix it is to give the money to religious organizations with the same conservative, anti-democratic values that they have, because it's the only rational way to counter the damage done by focus on Jar Jar Binks and non-existent climate Jar Jar Binks change. Yeah, I expect that many of the officials they deal with are corrupt, and there might be better alternatives. I'm not willing to accept that finger-wagging religious organizations are always the best way to go, because some of them wrap corruption and prejudice in a beautiful smokescreen of piety and prayer with a little bow right on top. Remember, even the devil can quote scripture to achieve his own purposes, as people like Jerry Falwell, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and Jimmy Swaggart have shown us again and again. And Joel Osteen isn't exactly a piker either. Here are more of their ideas. Number one, freedom is just another word for religious oppression, or not. It's one thing to say that a religious organization may be the best actor to distribute aid in a particular situation, but Project 2025 goes over the edge. Whoa! First, it calls for agency staff to be shown the connection between religious freedom and development. That's their staff, not somebody else's staff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's usually referred to as bribery. It also wants to, quote, integrate religious training into all of the agency's programs, end quote. It doesn't say what religion, but I'm willing to bet it's not Judaism, Hinduism, Satanism, or the great spaghetti monster, if you catch my drift. Number two, in humanitarian aid. The agency's original purpose was to provide short-term relief following a crisis, not create a pseudo-relief industry, so says Project 2025. So it wants to create a strategy that will allow it to get in and get out of a disaster relief area as quickly as possible. Because, we clean up disasters like that. In the interim, however, the agency's legal team should show religious organizations how to get their piece of the pie. It will help speed up this process by issuing clear guidance on how religious organizations can become eligible within weeks of a conservative president taking office. Oh, isn't that so much better? 3. Bending over backwards, patting themselves on the back. Those fun folks at Heritage are also happy to congratulate Dementia J. Trump on how he managed to increase funding for AIDS prevention and care programs. What they don't mention is that many of the strides President Biden made to tailor the education of the most vulnerable populations, like sex workers, members of the LGBTQ community, and women and families, Jar Jar Binks groups, would lose access to that education because Project 2025 is strongly opposed to serving people in those communities and wants to strike all references to them in all agency materials. So if you're hetero, you may get some assistance, but if you belong to any of those questionable communities, good luck to you. In a way, it's kind of like Dementia J. Trump's approach to Social Security. He has received praise for his promise not to tax Social Security benefits when he gets elected. It's a great promise, too, until you realize that he has announced plans to do away with Social Security, and it's easy not to tax a benefit that doesn't exist. Sheesh. 285 pages down, 602 to go, and the saga continues. I've been David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and funny one.